Today we have guest lectures who are going to present their speeches about urban forestry and their experience about management of urban forests in Europe. So we have two guest lecturers today. Dr. Lutz Fähser, is it correct pronunciation? Fähser, thank you. Who is from Germany, and he is going to be presenting urban forestry as ordinary part of forest management, a case study from the City Forest of Luebeck, Germany. Another speaker is going to be Robert Hostnik, who is the forester and specialist in urban forestry and ecosystem services in Slovenia. He is going to be presenting urban forests as a challenge for modern forest management, a case study from the City Forest of Celje, Slovenia. Thank you for both speakers for coming and giving these public lectures. It's a very important topic, actually, which the Georgians really need to hear more about. And our lectures are possible because of the help from and support from the GIZ and the program enabling the implementation of Georgia's forest sector reform, Eco Georgia. Thank you also to GIZ for that. Now I will give the floor to our first speaker, who is going to be Dr. Lutz, and please. Let me start your presentation.
Start to speak already.
You need to press this so it goes green and yes.
How much about to everybody? I'm very pleased that I am here. I was invited. I have been here since about 10 years, every year, more or less, for 1 or 2 months to support the process of forest sector reform in Georgia. And that is a wonderful progress I can observe every year. And this time I have the luck that my colleague Robert is as well here, was a specialist in urban forestry. And so we decided, I'm not a real specialist in urban forestry, but I had to govern and to manage a forest of a city of 220,000 inhabitants for nearly 25 years. And it is a sort of urban forest, even if you make normal management. And I want to first to represent, as a general forester, what is necessary even to follow the ideas of people of cities as the ordinary forester in its management work. So I named it urban forestry as ordinary part of any forest management. People like forests, which are a little bit wild. It is inborn, I think. Such a beech forest in your country, in Georgia, beech is a major species. You like such old beech forest where there's shade in summer and it is not so hot. Whether it's an urban forest or not, people like such wild and dense forests. And they like even the mixed forests here in Raja with the famous fir, Abies nordmanniana, mixed with other forests. That is nature and that is intact. And we feel as ordinary men, even not as a forester only, that is something which works, which is in harmony, and that is nature. But we meet, especially in Middle Europe, very often as well, such plantations. It's not really a forest, it's a plantation with the target to produce timber very quickly, and all the problems which come. And many of us, they feel not so amused when we go out and try to have recreation and steps through such plantations. And As well, such forests are not unusual in the world, where there was over-exploitation and too much use of the forest, not only for timber, but as well for browsing and for cattle, shepherds and so on. You know the problem here in Georgia. So mankind, we people, we must really consider that forests must be treated in a adequate way. And out of this, in 1992, the whole world stepped together with the first very international Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro and said we must stop the destruction of our forests. Forests are necessary for survival and for everything, for welfare. And they decided on several conventions, like Convention on Climate Change. You are familiar with these things. And very important for forestry, especially the Convention on Biological Diversity. And apart that, in those times, they defined a declaration on forest, which came out altogether in an action program. What have we to do? Agenda 20 in the 21st century, Agenda 21 for sustainable development. What does it mean, sustainable development? It means that whatever we do as a forester, especially, we must harmonize the needs of ecology, of the society, and of economic demands all together, not only economy, not only society, not only nature, with exceptions. Nature conservation is only ecology, but the normal management of a forester has really to harmonize the different aspects of demands and necessities to a forest. But we foresters are used, especially in Middle Europe, to mainly cut the forest, to mainly make timber or firewood. You see, you can, in the symbol, we cut and we let the forest grow until maybe 140 years age, and then we have ripe, also aged and over-aged trees, and then we decide out of our regulations, now it's the time to cut the trees, and that's the end of this production period, and afterwards we start again with regeneration, and then they grow another 100 or 140 years. But if you think that forests in their natural perception, they grow beech forest 200, 300, 400 years long, or oak 800,000 years long, but we foresters cut them in their youth and say that now they are ripe. Yeah, from our perception, it is ripe in terms of timber and best selling. So we have to consider in future that if we speak about forest management, and especially about close to nature forest management, what would nature want from us as a forester, close to nature forestman? That means nature would grow longer, the trees, and grow complexer, the ecosystem. So we must ask ourselves if we could really adapt our idea of production, timber production, to the necessity of an ecological approach. That means we must think in ecosystems and not in plantations. Normally, people who live in a city and go out for recreation and so, and suddenly they see such machines in their beloved forests where they want to recreate and have a good afternoon with their children. Suddenly such a big machine is coming along with noise and smell, bad smell, and makes the skidding trails like this. You cannot walk anymore. Then those from yours who are scientifically knowledgeable, they know this is a bad treatment of nature, because underneath those skidding trails, the forest roads, there is life. There was life, and this life was the interconnection of the roots of the trees. It is a system. It is not the addition of single trees, but a system which only can work if anything is interconnected. So as a forester, we must consider that people recognize more and more with their knowledge that a hard treatment of forest in form of a management of timber and cutting of timber and transporting timber with heavy machines is probably of disadvantage to the natural system. And when we declare we have a nature-oriented forestry or close to nature forestry, then we must fulfill this promise. Now, back to what I promised to tell you a little bit about the city of Luebeck. Luebeck is a city in the north of Germany. It is famous for its sweets, marzipan, Niederegger there. Sometimes I bring some with me. So yeah, remind you that we have not only timber, but even edible things. And we have and had 3 Nobel Prize winners as well in our city, but that is not important for now. And in Luebeck, the politicians decided, after heavy struggles with the Forest Service, which made classical timber production and not real near to nature forestry, we must have a new forest approach. We must have a close to nature forest approach. And I was invited to come, and then I was there for 25 years. And I tell you a little bit about this example in Luebeck City Forest. We had only 2 main guidelines. We developed these guidelines together with the foresters. We needed some years to change our mind how to manage a forest, a city forest for 220,000 people, but not only for the people, but for all creatures and all nature which wants to live in our forest. The first is, you see, we thought that our managed forest, our commercial forest, even they must approach as much as possible the natural forest association. It must come very close to the configuration, the structure, and the dynamics of nature itself. Because imagine nature, forest nature lives since 300 million years, long before people appeared, and they always renewed, and as they adapted to catastrophes, everything, they came back. And if you go away from your wonderful Tbilisi, maybe out of what reasons, after 50 years, you will find only green, some stones. That means it is so strong. Forest is so strong, it's the strongest force we have. And we should not hinder this strong force, which produces in our sense, timber, beauty, good climate. We should not hinder it as a forester. We should try to fit into this existing high productive system, which is there for free, even economically for free. So the first is try to come as close as possible in a managed forest, in a commercial forest, to a primary forest, which is not irritated by a forest. The second is spoken to the managers, to the foresters themselves. Whatever you do in the forest, from your plan, 10 years plan, 1 year's plan, recreation plan, or replanting plan, or cutting plan, whatever you do, decide for that method and with that technique which minimizes the depletion, which minimizes the disturbance in the natural system. That's easy. Come close to nature, and whatever you do, minimum interference, precautionary principle. What does it mean? What does it mean in detail? We must transfer it to the daily activities. Just to show it as a picture, on the right side, you see a traditional German regeneration cuts. The foresters thought for hundreds of years they must help nature to regenerate because they can't do it by themselves. So they cut the trees which gave shade on the little plants and said, now you can grow. But they cut out all the old trees which wanted to continue 100 or 200 years more, and which were more productive than the young ones. So they take out the more productive layer in order to promote the less productive layer, which didn't want to grow up so early. But they were used to wait for 50 or 100 years underneath the canopy of mother and father. And that you see at the left side. That is the natural regeneration, which goes naturally. And when you need to cut a tree, then you cut it out, and there will be a little hole like here, and you see can still see the stem lying there. And that's enough light for regeneration. And that's right, that is the time to regenerate, not earlier. So why not follow the natural system? You can harvest here and there, but not everywhere, and destroy the natural dynamics. So that is one idea, close to nature, only natural regeneration, and only there where you have a need of timber, or a need of cutting, not everywhere. Poor young trees, now they stand in the full sunshine, and beech is a shade-tolerant tree species. It doesn't want to be in the heat, doesn't want to stand in the frost. So, but we do it in Germany mainly still now. We give space to the youth. That is modern, space to the youth, we old ones. So just to explain some single technical components out of the idea close to nature and minimum interference, it is only selective of cut of single trees here and there, never an open space. The open space shall be not more than, let us say, 30 meters in diameter, not more. That is a natural opening, which would occur even in virgin tree. The crown falls down, then you have a hole, but not more, because that is immediately you have regeneration of timber tree species in this little hole. If you make it bigger, a clear-cut area, then nature reacts in a panic, and you have bushes and long-lasting vegetation which hinders the regeneration of trees. It comes only then after 10, 20, 30 years. But if you have a small hole, that's exact the climate which need our timber trees to immediately in the next or over next year regrow. The second is, please do not import tree species from other ecological systems, because the ecological system, our native forest system here, is the result out of thousands and thousands of years of development. It consists of the interlinkage of millions of organisms and trees and grasses and beetles and fungus and everything. A system is, we do not know what the system consists of. It is just much. And if you introduce from other ecological regions like Africa, America, or even Germany, tree species to Georgia, then those tree species that don't speak the language of your ecosystem here, they have a problem to understand each other, and the birds don't know where to build a nest, because that's not that is not their scheme they are used to, and the fungi, they cannot interconnect the roots underneath, because they don't know these roots and the function of the roots. So natural generation only from your native inborn tree species, which are from here, because they know each other. They have trained to adapt and to fight and to support in the same way as societies, human societies principally do. The third is the principle of minimum interference. A precautionary principle must be found again when we do something. For example, when we want to tend, to improve, to thin. That means maybe we have done too much in the past. Even maybe some Makka and others know that I am always struggling here in Georgia. Don't do so much. It is not necessary. The first 40, 50 years in a regeneration, if you interfere there, then you interfere in the best organization of this society. They need 20, 30, 40 years until to find out which is the strongest one, which plant can grow where. And if we as foresters say, no, we know better, I prescribe you to grow here and you there, then we cut off the ability of a system to adapt and to really grow in the best way. So very few thinnings, very few interferences, until the trees are big and you may one or other want to harvest. That means not more than 3 or 4 times in 100 years interfere. If you count what we do so far, we do too much. Even in Germany, the German Forest Service interferes in 100 years about 20 to 25 times every 5 or 10 years to do something, to thin. They say it's good, I help the forest. But helping the forest means always to disturb, always negative, always against the natural development. And another thing is, in our managed forest, we very often, in Germany, I speak now about Germany because this point, the fourth point, is different here in Georgia. We have lost those trees, biotope trees and dead trees, which are normal part of a natural system. But in Germany, we harvest everything which doesn't grow straight, or which is ill, or which is dry, or so. We say, no, it must all be productive, and we take out everything. That means we take out the very valuable parts of an ecosystem, which are the beginning of the turnover for the next generation. Trees must be allowed to fall down, to get a rotten tree, to make humus out of it, to hold the water in the stem, and. So they are an essential part, these biotope trees and dead trees, essential part of the turnover as renewable of the system. And in managed forests and plantations, you do not allow nature to die. No? Either you cut it in a good way, or others who are ill or die, who have dry branches, they are not functional. So that means keep, if possible, at least 10% of the living stand of the living trees as biotope trees for nesting, for beetles and everything. Let it, yeah, let it. Not everything must be productive. And another idea is, and it will be introduced here in Georgia as well, in the new perception of forestry, that we must learn what does nature, what does a forest do without forester? Yeah, we foresters say it will die naturally. If we cannot help the forest, then the forest must die. But the contrary is right, and we should learn, set aside a part of beech forest, set aside a part of spruce forest and other forest types, and never interfere again, and from time to time go there, make a monitoring and compare what nature does with this part unmanaged in comparison to what we have done as a foresters out of our regulations, our rules and our experience. And normally then you learn, oh, we have done too much. That part we have not managed, we have not thinned, yeah, we have not tried to regulate. It grows much better than that what we have always treated in a good way out of our books we have learned about. The books are sometimes not equal to reality. So these 10% reference areas is a very interesting learning area. What does nature in comparison to what do we? And when you do such forestry and let the trees grow and only harvest them in a big beech, your main forest species like this, then you can harvest big trees, 10 to 15 cubic meters, one tree, and 15 tons in weight, only one from time to time. And the value of those is more than the value of 10 or 15 younger trees you normally harvest for with longer diameters. And the upper part you can use for fuel wood, and the lower part you can use for high value trees. So you see, that is the product which comes out of a forest in which you do not interfere so much. You only wait until they reach a special dimension which nature can do easily. This way of forestry, which is a minimum interference forestry close to nature, was evaluated from a big group of foresters, international groups. They came, the International Union of Forest Research Organizations, they came with the whole bus to Luebeck, and with about 40 scientists, and said it cannot be that when you do less you are more successful. That's not, it's against the perception of the honor of a forester. And they went around and tried to find out what's the secret behind. And finally, they presented in the World Forest Congress in 2010, really the result of it. They said a management which is guided by the principle of ecological, that means nature, integrity. This provides greater economic benefits than a management that is based only on the improvement of efficiency. That means we go on as before, a bigger machine, more pesticides, a quicker growth, and that's not the right way. It's always against nature, and everything which you intensify against nature is against economy finally, because it costs and it reduces the stability of the natural system. So we got really the result of the international forest research organizations. The secret of good forestry, even good managed forest, and a good economic result is ecology. And ecology means back to nature. And such forests look then like this. We are not so used anymore because we foresters didn't allow to grow into big forests. It's a natural forest. And there you have oak and beech and dead trees, standing trees and half-standing trees. And this is what urban people like. They like big trees. They like here and there some open spaces because forest is for people. And the general estimation of the people in Luebeck, where I had to change the mind of the people. First they said, no, it is so irregular, there's dead wood, take it away, we don't want dead wood in our forest, it's irregular, we want clear and clean forest. Now we had to teach them that it's a reason behind that, it's a reason behind habitat trees. The final result of this Luebeck concept after 20, 30 years was we got the highest ranking certification. You know that is Forest Stewardship Council. And even we have a better one in German, Natureland, but it is not international. The profitability, that means the finances which come out of such a forest, are the highest in such a forestry which is based on ecosystem approach. And I must tell you, I'm specialized in forest economics. I made my PhD in forest economics. And only out of this considerations on economics, I found back to ecology. And so without good ecology, nobody can make good economy. And the third was all the critical people like Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, who normally have forests as an enemy. Forest is the enemy of Greenpeace. It's not normal. He wants to cut trees too early and make damage in the forest. They came to us and said, exact, that is what we want. So not don't cut a tree, but cut a tree under certain rules, close to nature rules. So the Greenpeace concept worldwide now is the Luebeck concept. Luebeck overtook this Luebeck concept in general principles for the whole world, and we got visitors from everywhere. After that, from Canada and from New Zealand, New Guinea. And that was funny. Greenpeace said, do it like in Luebeck. And then they went to flew in the airplane and came to Luebeck, said, interesting, we want to join you. But for example, those from New Guinea, he said, but we have no beech trees in New Guinea. How can we do? I said, no, the principles. It is a principle close to nature, and you have other species and interference in a minimum way, not beech trees everywhere, not oak trees, mucha everywhere, yeah? But your trees. So acceptance of NGO, and that was Lasha, when we started the first years to discuss about in which direction should we go in the forest sector reform. I remember very well that especially here from your university, some very critical people, students and professors came and said, when you go this way, then we agree, then we support you. And from that on, we got much support even from the university here, said in this direction we can support forestry. And which came additionally to it was in the last years what the perception of climate change. Climate change now is visible everywhere. In your country, luckily not that much, but in other countries, including Germany, very much. Many trees are dying, not the forest itself, but trees. And such a system which goes close to nature and which is in a minimum only irritated by managing, it's an adapting system, naturally adapting system to climate change. But let us come to Georgia. When I came here, I came in 2014, and just a year before you had declared political level the national forest concept for Georgia, which is a very good concept out of my mind. And there were written some very clear principles in this national forest concept. The first one was the principle of sustainable forest management system. The forest in Georgia shall and must be managed in a way of sustainable forest management, which means close to nature. Sustainability is only possible if you can obey the rules of nature. That means close to nature. The second is written there, we must follow in the forest the precautionary principle, which means minimum interference. We be cautious. Yeah, be cautious. Forests are a black box. Nobody understands the forest completely. It is a complete black box. And if you act with a black box, you can only act in the right way if you are cautious, if you are minimum disturbance system, because you don't know how the system works in itself. You see later on the output, the forester sees the output only when he is dead, because after 50 or 100 years, that's easy. He can never learn, because when he is dead, only the results out of his doing come out. So it is a black box. And the third is all forests are local. That is written in your forest concept. All forests are local. That means people must be participating. And that is a way to urban forestry. Urban forestry, people live with their forest as neighboring situation. So all forests are local participation. So close to nature, minimum disturbance, we spoke about it. The third is participation, which I did not discuss so much. But we discussed here in the first meeting, Slasha, about the principles, social principles, and so on. And one of the social principles we discussed was written down in those times here with NFA. That means everybody has free access to a forest. That means not only for special urban forests, but every forest here and even in Germany shall have free access to the public. And it shall meet the requirements of the local population, because the local population is that which has to live with what is done or not done, which has to fulfill the demands from forests. And we shall never, as a forester, lose the context of forestry to the culture of the local, to the habits of local communities. And finally, what comes out of the forest, like timber, but non-timber forest products, like berries, like mushroom, like beauty, like fresh air, like water, that must be distributed to the local people in a fair way and not only be exported and somewhere sold. So in your country, it is everything prepared to a real urban forestry approach. That means the communication with the people and the share of the outcome of the forest to the local people in the first line. And this means you cannot do it secretly like a forest. You cannot plan secretly, saying, I have my plan, I will do, and nobody shall look at it. No, it comes out, your forest concept from 2013. The transparency principle is written in the forest concept. And that means in the decision-making process, all the stakeholders are related in some way to what is in the forest or that comes out of the forest must participate. And must again look at the identity with the cultural needs of the people. And people must for this have plain access to the information, what is planned, what is done, what will not be done in their neighboring forest. And that means the public administration in your country, the forests are mainly public forests. These public procedures must be very visible, must be very clear, and be done in a participatory way. So that is what I wanted to say you about an approach which is not only for special urban forestry, but that every management, every and any, even in a small village, must have the same principles as we have in a big city as urban forestry, I mean, participation, because forestry is an ethical principle, because we all depend on forest and we all live upon forest, and when forests go, cultures go, people go. We have many in history, many examples that high-ranking cultures in Iran, and I have been in many countries of this world, have gone, and they are very poor countries because they have lost their forest. It is an ethical principle, forestry, and it means sustainability for the next generations, for all generations, for our children and our grandchildren. So we are very responsible. Thank you very much.
So we can have question and answers now, or we can listen to the other presentation and also have both speakers then afterwards, and then have the discussion later. Okay, then please, Robert.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Can I stand? Is okay? Okay, because I'm more used to
You can use the microphone, the other one.
Okay. That's nice. Yeah. Thank you. Let me first thank you for the invitation to give this lecture. I'm glad that I have this opportunity. My name is Robert Hostnik. I introduce myself as a forest practitioner. I'm not a researcher. I work in the forest now for 30 years. I do some research too, but mainly I will tell you my presentation will come out of experience, and in some way it will be a continuation of what colleague Lutz told us. So thank you, Lutz, for this really inspiring presentation. I will go a little bit deeper into really practical forestry. So the title of my presentation is A Challenge of Modern Forest Management. This will be actually a very practical example, which I call the urban forest story, the place where I am working now for more than 2 decades. And through this practical management, I would like to maybe to emphasize also what Lutz were saying in the previous lecture, but from this practical way. So this is actually the forest develops, the forest development is a story or is a process. This is just an illustration how we tried, or what was the path of development of our urban forest. So first we were speaking about the roles. What are the roles of urban forests? And then we tried to do some development. And then again, we were speaking about the roles. What are the new roles? What are the prospects? And can a forest be a brand? So this is Slovenia, where I'm coming from, the country in the Central Europe, smaller than Georgia, but we have many same characteristics, diverse land, mountains. Also, we have the sea like you. And also the forest cover in Slovenia is quite high, almost 60%. And the characteristic for our forest management now for 60 years is close to nature forest management. We are practicing the principles, some of the principles that were mentioned before. I have to say that Luebeck concept is even more forward thinking than what we are doing. So we have to learn, we can learn on it and improve it and go forward. And what are the principles of our close to nature forest management? So first is natural regeneration. That's the key, the first key. And then the high growing stock, large trees, natural tree species composition. So no alien tree species in our forests, and small scale intervention. So Lutz, it's quite the same. What we are trying to do is to establish this ecosystem continuity, and on one hand, on another hand, also economic sustainability. So it is connected, economy and ecology very close. So the results, what are the results? I didn't mention in the beginning. So first I will say just few general words about the forestry in Slovenia. So 99% of our forests are naturally regenerated. So to plant, to make a forest plantation or to plant trees in our forest is quite unusual. We have diverse forests, so 75 native tree species. I heard that in Georgia there are many more. but we are really satisfied that we kept our 75. And in last 70 years, the growing stock of our forests increased for 240%. It's like this. So at the moment, the growing stock average growing stock in Slovenian forest is a little bit about 300 cubic meters per hectare. So we have this 60% of forest cover almost, but if we take into account just the cities and the forest around the cities, it's only 20,000 hectares of these forests. So it means 1.4% of the forests, of our forests. But these forests are most visited forests of all forests in Slovenia. And I think it's quite similar also in other countries. People are coming to the forests which are close to where they live. And in one way, the urban forests are like a shopping window to the whole forestry in our country. What people see in urban forest, then they think, well, it's the same in all other forests. So we have to be really, on one side, careful what we do with the urban forests, but on the other side, this is a really nice opportunity to show off, I would say, just to show what we can do, how good we are, if I can say it this way. So this is city of Celje, where I work, and where we are developing our urban forest. And we started quite early. I mean, when I finished my studies, I came to work here, and I saw all these forests around the city, but nobody didn't really take care for them. So we were trying to define with the first studies the key issues of these forests. And first, they had no legal status, and the ownership, most of them were privately owned, and very small small fragmentations. It means a lot of forest owners. The forest management was just as usual as in other forests. They were quite poor accessible, and on some parts even overused. So our first strategy plan that we made in 1996 was closely connected to these issues that I mentioned. So the first, we thought it's necessary that we protect these forests by a local law. So they will have some kind of different category as other forests. And then to improve ownership structure, to start with some kind of adapted forest management, to develop infrastructure, especially recreational infrastructure, to provide stable financial source. And already at that time, it's written there, public relations. We thought already at that time that to work with the people is one of the crucial guidelines of modern forestry. So we need allies in the citizens because the politics, they are changing sometimes every 4 years. But if we have public support, then we can somehow avoid this turbulence with the new elections. And yes, already in 1997, we started to going legal. So we proposed the local act that municipality and the city council confirmed in 1997 and protect the forests around the city. And they got this special status of forests of special purpose. I know that the Georgian New Forest Act also includes this category, forests of special purpose. So, and the next step that we started at the same time was how to improve the ownership structure. And the municipality, according to this new local act, obliged to buy private forests if the forest owners were willing to sell the forest. So to increase the area of public forests in the beginning, only 5% of the forests were in the ownership of the municipality, and another 5 in the ownership of the state. So 90% of the forests were privately owned. And one of the big challenges of urban forest management is how to combine these private interests, which are usually economic interests, and public interests, which are usually something that people would like to go in the forest. And this is one of the examples. So the municipality was owner of these two forest parcels already more than 100 years ago. But then this process of slow changing of ownership started, and it went this way. So when a forest owner offer its forest, the municipality bought it. But we did it, the Forest Service, we were somehow in the middle between the forest owners and the municipality. So we always advised the municipality which forests are good to buy and which are not, depending on location especially. So yeah, in 2000, we started with the infrastructure. As I said, the forests were quite poor accessible. So we started to build new forest roads for forest management, skidding trails, but most of them were just recreational paths. So this is the situation in before 2000, just few paths which were not connected, and this is now the situation after we start to rebuild or to make new forest paths. And these are the types. So adapted forest road that is used for forest management as well, but mostly still for recreation, and then skidding trail, and unpaved path meant for walk up to 1.2 meters wide width. This is just one of the example of these new paths. And we opened the forest with the new entrance points, because before it was quite difficult to access the forest at all. There were buildings and this access were many times it was poor or there was none. And we equipped all of these trails new. And the forest management and maintenance, we started to adapt to these new social forest functions. We are dealing with timber production as well. Still, sometimes we are using adapted ways. So sometimes we are using horses to extract the wood, mostly, of course, with the machines. But there are some areas that we don't want to make too big damage because of the steep slopes to the forest soils, so we are using horses. And going public, in the first 10 years, I think more than 250 articles were published in the local newspapers. Local media was one of our target media, and the journalists, they love what we gave them. They always publish it, and we learned that we have how to write sorry, no, not publications, but the text for the journalists. We learned that it has to be in one page, because if it is only on one page, they would just copy paste it. If it would be longer, they would choose the content, and it worked. They copy pasted our messages many times, most of the times. And so we have then the professional excursion started to come to our forest. And one of the important activities was also already then working with the schools. We are working with all primary and secondary schools in the city. They are coming to the forest. We have regular program for them. And we also stepped out of the forest. We knew that we cannot be only in the forest. We have to present ourselves. So we started to go on fairs, on different kind of events in the city, and we became known, I can say. And already in 2005, we had this logo of the forest that we wanted that people somehow identify us, and when they see the logo and the graphical design, that they connect. Well, this is forest. This is later they were starting to say this is our forest. That was our intention actually. So we were there in 2010 with all this infrastructure, basic, and all the forests were public. So what was the next step? And if the 1996 strategy was this that I already explained, we were thinking, so what is the next step? And this is the strategy for the next 10 years. We more started to focus on the governance. So to cooperate with the stakeholders, with the public participation. We started already at that time with some kind of branding. So we want that the forest become something that is recognizable characteristic of this city. That city can say, well, we are the best in Slovenia regarding forest management and urban forest management. And as I mentioned, we wanted to continue with education. Very important issue, I think, still is nowadays. So this is 2008 picture. We signed a contract with the municipality finally after 10 years of voluntary work, I can say. And so we somehow formalized this good cooperation with the municipality, and we became we start to also formally to manage this forest and preparing plans, and of course in close cooperation with the municipality. And we did this contract also. We tried to do it more to attract media. So we had this under the largest beach in our urban forest. And then, of course, we had to ask people, so what is missing? What do you want more in this forest? And guess what? 1/3, they say, we don't want anything more. This is fine. This is fine with us. And this was really something nice answer to us. But there were also some ideas. And then we started, we said, okay, let's do some progress still. And we did this ecosystem services survey then. For example, this is just one of the examples. I'm speaking just one area that you can see that it is an example. So this is the area for soil protection, erosion, nature conservation, timber production almost everywhere, recreation, and education. These services are overlapping. And this is the characteristic for urban forests. This, especially social or cultural ecosystem services, they are all overlapping, and it's quite a challenge how to deal with all of them when they are all there. It's not only timber production or soil protection. We have in this area 5 of them, let's say. So we did this zoning then. After that, special places for recreation when the recreation is important, or education and experience. And this is our concept that we developed. So we have on one side education and experience, and education was more for visitors through the tools of nature interpretation, with the goals of new recognition of this forest, new recognition of the value of this forest, and for the inspiration. Forest is something, is inspiring place to be. But actually the experience concept is almost the same, but it is more focused on the children. So we are using forest pedagogy as a tool, and to provide some deep experience for the children that they will remember for the whole time, for the many years. That was our goal, very enthusiastic goal, but also that they get some new knowledge that will somehow follow them through their years. well, this is just the space, how we deal it. So with these interpretation points and with experience areas. And we also knew that our forests need a focus. So we built a visitor center and a forest playground. We try to, with these loud activities like children playground or a visitor center, we try to bring them together and to leave the rest of the forest more silent, not so loud. And I think we did it quite well. So this is new recreational equipment, we changed our old signposts with the new one. And with the new one, they also always have this, also some of the contents. We call it short forest story. It's a short story on something about the forest locally, or maybe general world forestry. Always some interesting topic that is in a way connected with this place. These short forest stories, I could have a lecture about this, but just to say that we try to limit the length of the short forest story to 70 words. So how to tell things in 70 words? It's quite difficult, I must say. And some new didactical equipment for presentations. This one is about forest soils. And people were starting to come even more. So we had these small cultural events in the forest, new stage. This is forest playground. And our tree house as this focus of the forest. The tree house is was meant primarily for education. So it can host one class of children. But we also have their exhibitions regularly and small cultural events. It serves also as a small information center. Yeah. So it was 2016, and our goals from 2006 were more or less fulfilled. So where do we go next? Yeah. This is our strategy from 2016 to 2025. So we wanted to, beside other activities that we already developed before, to develop more marketing of the forest, not so much as to earn money, but more to get more support and to even show the forest even more visible. And education, this is our common guidelines, and to develop a new instrument of payments for ecosystem services. Because on one hand, the buying off of the forests went very well. But what if the forest owner doesn't want to sell its forest? How to provide this combination of this private and public interest? So we are sure that forest owner should have something out of it, that people are going to his forest. And we started with the projects of how to, for example, how to pay forest owner to allow organized recreation in their forests, in his forest. I cannot go deeper. I can answer questions later, so yeah. We came to also on the national TV slowly but surely, so they were speaking about us also nationwide. And then, if we look at back, what were these main driving forces that were important? So the cooperation on the first was the first time for sure. The close cooperation with the local community, with the municipality, and with their support, we were gaining this results, this synergy. 1 + 1 wasn't 2 anymore, but was 3. And the common thread is that we never really invested big money in our forest, but slowly but surely. So the kind of organic gradual growth to try to do the most with small money, so cost-effective approach, persistence, that was quite important. So never give up, I can say, because we had bad times too. Of course, it looks, well, yeah, we had bad times too. And all that we do, all that we put in the forest has to be highest quality possible, because we understand forest as a high quality area, high quality ecosystem. And if we interfere with some equipment, it has to be the best that we can do. And what are the tools? What were the tools? Of course, close to nature forest management was the primary and basic starting point. But in urban forestry, we have to involve new knowledge that we foresters didn't really know about. We have to learn, and we were learning by doing. So it's all of this: public relations, marketing, forest pedagogy, governance, participation, conflict management between, for example, between different forest users or between forest owners and forest users. And we somehow developed this model, and other cities started they were interested in our experiences. We started to share our experiences. These are 6 largest cities in Slovenia. And we developed 10 criteria of the state of the urban forest management for these 6 cities. So the green means very good. The orange means, well, we are still starting these areas. And these are different criteria. I can say that my city and Ljubljana as a capital are leading in urban forestry in Slovenia. Other cities some of them are still quite behind. The idea is somehow to share the experience between the cities and to make a common platform between the cities, so that not that each cities and the local government have to discover it by itself, but to share knowledge and experience, ideas, inspiration, to give some governance guidelines and management standards as well. We were in recent years, we are working also internationally. So we were a part of the very nice European project called Urb for Den, where we developed pilot urban forests in each of these 7 cities. First prepare a strategy plan for urban forests, then an operational plan for one part of urban forest, and then very important part also implementation. So it was a really nice project. You can also see at the webpage about Urb for Den. And well, let me finish my presentation with what I think are the future roles of urban forests. First, human health, and it's only one more, it's climate mitigation. That is my opinion, what will be the role of the most important role of urban forests in the future. And somehow our goal should be to develop a culture of urban forests. So appreciation of this special place that is around the city, and a support to these forests among the local citizens. That would be all from me. So thank you very much for your patience, and
Thank you, Robert, very much. Dear Lutz, please join us at the stage so we can answer the questions here. Also, let me make sure that people from the Zoom meeting also have the opportunity to ask the questions. So also from the Zoom participants, please raise your hand and I will let you speak or let you ask the question. Ვისაც კიდევ ქართულად გინათ დასმა კითხვის, ეგეც დიდი სიამოვნებით შეგიძლიათ დასვათ და ჩვენ შევეცდებით რომ გადავუთანთ. თუ აქვთ კითხვები ახლა.
So when we are talking about the voluntary job from 96 to 26, is there any funds or donor organizations which we are helping you to develop? And because it's very hard to make system where you don't have much economical benefits.
Well, I didn't, maybe I wasn't clear enough. So we did voluntary work for the municipality, but we were paid, we were working in the Forest Service, Slovenia Forest Service. So we were paid there, but we didn't charge to the municipality any cost. We were doing this as a some kind of possibility for professional development of our work. Yeah, so we were financially supported by the Forest Service.
First of all, thank you very much for really inspiring presentations, both of you. It was a pleasure listening to you. So my question is, who was the initiator? Was it the forestry department or the municipality? How did all this start?
Maybe it's a question of both of us. I reflected more on the general concept, but we have urban forestry as well, special, but I reflected more on this general we spoke about, and you were continuing with a very special urban forestry. And in Germany, first in Luebeck, the case I spoke about, it was two parts who initiated it. It was my interest since, I think, 15 years before, to find a place where I could really start with the management close to nature. I tried it in the, started in the state forest. There's a huge hierarchy with thousands of civil servants above you as a young man, and ended finally at a community. That's the same what you did, a community, a city forest, where you have no you commanding director above you in your field. You have only political chief who wants other goals than a forester wants. He wants a good income and good management and please citizens about what you do, and so very general. So that was one part. I found a city where it was somehow not against, let us say. And the second was they had trouble, the city had trouble before with my predecessor, with the NGOs. And so the NGOs were, I said, the enemies of the foresters, and they were always struggling against each other. And they said, this must have an end. We want a new phase, and we invite a new forest director. And so it came both together. That was easy. Because of this in Germany, the new approaches in forestry come mainly from communities, not from the state forest. State forest is such a big tank ship, no? It cannot change the direction so easily. That's a problem.
In our case, it was maybe a little bit different because we foresters started it. We saw their potential, and we saw their challenge to develop also professionally. It took some time at least 3 or 4 years that municipality grab our ideas and our work. So as I said, it took 10 years that we somehow gained the trust from the municipality. But after 2008, so they say, well, we trust you, you do it. And actually, they were not really initiating new things. We were doing all the time, but they were supporting us with the finances and with the political support too in the city council. But still, until now, we have now new mayor, and we will see how it will be. But it is the way. But you know, now in the recent years, the municipality and the politicians, they figure out that that's good for them. That was always our goal. That they say, this is good for us, we have to support them. For us was good, and to gain this political support, and that they can see their own how can I say, gains if they support forests and forest development. That was good. And nowadays they are publishing it mainly through social media, that the city of Celje is the city who has best managed forests. They don't mention us, it's not necessary. But yeah, that's how it is. Just yeah.
მაია ტალახაძეს აქვს კითხვა Zoom-ში, თუ შეიძლება მაია გავუსვით.
გამარჯობა. Hello, I hope my voice is okay, because I had some technical problems while I was listening to you and watching to you. Sorry for that. I have one question. I am from Red Caucasus. This is an organization, civil society organization that right now implements a project in Kutaisi city. The project name is low carbon development of Kutaisi city through nature-based urban development. And within our project, we have one demonstration project that is connected to develop an urban forest in Kutaisi, Sakori forest. And right now we have already prepared a document that actually kind of terms of reference that envisages to have a research how to develop this urban forest in Kutaisi, and also we plan to make a demonstration project there in terms of infrastructural development. My question, this was kind of introduction, but my question is connected to the paperwork. If you have, I suppose you have already done in terms of Slovenia and in terms of Lubeck, and if you have this kind of the presentation and lecture as such was very interesting, but if you have some paperwork in terms of development of urban forests, and if it is possible, I would like to ask you to share it for us as a best practice to consider. Just a small question and request, if of course sometimes it is not possible to share it with other stakeholders, but if there is such possibility to share it, I would be happy to have it also paperwork. Thanks a lot.
More to you.
Yes, we published our work in several articles, and especially we were doing presentations on international conferences called European Forum on Urban Forests, where I'm quite involved in. So we have a lot of presentations there, and I can share these presentations, yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe just to add, not to forget, I think that's a good opportunity. The lady asked about the possibility to have some documentation and so on, but I think that the best one of the best source of information for how the urban forest can be developed is the project which Robert mentioned before. It was Fordan, was leading by the municipality of Ljubljana, and six or seven capitals of Europe were involved, and all the documentation is on the internet. So it's really, let's say, ready to use. The municipality of Ljubljana used the 30 years work of Robert to do this 3 years work, and it's perfect. And then others used others can now use the documentation for Georgia. This will be very, 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 very useful. Thank you.
Yes, if I can add, so through this project, Ljubljana get new urban forest strategy, very new one. It is published, and I would suggest that you look for it. Very good one, and also operational plans are published of these cities. So yeah, this is very good, I think, source.
Thank you. Marco?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much, both of you, for really inspiring talks. My question is related to public support, because I think in both presentations it was mentioned that public support is important. So my question is, whether you had it from the very beginning as granted, or did you have to earn it? And if so, what was the crucial in that? Thank you.
Maybe I begin, because both have different experiences. I must confess, it took us in Luebeck 8 years until we formulated finally the project as this new concept. So you mentioned you needed some years as well. And I learned from, as a younger forester, it is not good to hesitate in the beginning. It is not good to preach and to tell them how they should do, but really the other way around. The participation is the point, and to ask. The first year is only to ask, what do you want? What do you not want? What find you better? And so bringing the people in the ownership position so that they are encouraged finally. We can decide. That is detect, not the foresters decide, the foresters as a tool for us to do something, because forests, if they are not private forests, they belong to the people. And they should really know they belong to us. And the foresters are only an instrument to fulfill our ideas and our wishes. So I went to the target groups first. That was mainly the NGOs and nature conservation groups, which were naturally especially interested in nature and forest and species. One problem was for me, and it's still now, that many nature conservationists are looking at a specific species and not at an ecosystem. You see, they protect their most beloved species, a special bird or a special worm or a special plant or so. And that is sometimes not coherent with our idea of an ecosystem which is developing itself. And then one or other species maybe is not in good conditions because it's in succession stage where the forest is dark and it cannot live in. But after maybe 100 years, there will be a fire or a catastrophe or a harvest, and then it's not dark anymore, and then the species has a chance. We must think in forests in succession stages, which are hundreds of years, one after the other. So that was difficult to explain, and that not every beloved special species can obtained and conserved by such a system, which is a dynamic system driven mainly by nature itself. That was a process. Because of this, even nature conservationists were a little doubtful about our concept, which does not protect by doing much for a specific species. Participation later was that we offered to other parts of the administration of the city, like conservation part department, and so nature conservation parts, that they invited them to come and to elaborate everything with us. Before this, it was separated conservationist part against foresters that try to hide things which I thought the other one would not follow. And so we said, no, we must come to a complete agreement, to mutual agreement. And then that was what we did. We made it public. No? We made it public and encouraged people and schools, especially schools, to come. And this led to the point that I had per year more than 1,000 visitors, not general visitors, but experienced people like forest schools, universities, and so as it spread around. Firstly, in the scientific and educated area, not in the public. And for the public, we introduced then special events. For example, once a year an open day, and for cost-free, and we demonstrated what we do and what we not do. That were always very constant. 15,000 people in one place in the forest, which came. It was always nearly the same, depended a little bit from the weather. But it was very popular. We had to encourage something. And then I did one thing. I must confess, in the beginning, I said we want to have the outstanding point for this Luebeck should be recreation and participation in wilderness, and not in equipment. And we had no seats, no banks, no playground, nothing. We said no. Our Alleinstellungsmerkmal, a single position point, is quietness, wilderness, nature itself. And that was for many years. We had this. It was cheap. It was very cheap, not to do anything. And but we wanted this. And our foresters, we had 5 foresters there. I had 5,000 hectares to manage. Our 5 foresters. They led many groups, housewives, school classes, and so. And it was a task for them. It was a task for them. It was not liberal. They had to do, and they did it. And then we opened the forest kindergarten. It was the second in Germany. The first one was near Denmark. It came from Denmark, this idea. And this is, for me, the most really successful event, is that children from 3 years on could come and should come to the forest. And we have now, I think, 4 or 5 kindergarten in the forest. They have no house. They just have a little hut to put their luggage there. And then every day, any weather, they go around in the forest. And they are so much, I say, formed by being part of nature, by being part of this forest. That's later on, when they come to school or are students, you will recognize them. They are different. They're different, and they hold together. They build groups, teams from that year on. They meet again. So that is a really a real progress. This kindergarten only in the forest. Only in the forest. There's no possibility to flee from a rain or flee from cold weather. They are in the forest. That is one thing of participation, not the usual participation in decision making, but the participation in feeling, and then afterwards in wanting forest as part of their lives. Then I made the next step. I discussed with different parties a real big project on 50 hectares in the forest. I wanted the forest quiet, still in wilderness, most of the forest, but concentrated on about 50 hectares, a canopy walkway. You have to go up, and 40, 50 meters high, can walk there. And meeting rooms, only tree houses, only as tree houses, and a little zoo, only but with animals, with Haustiere. What is it? Domestic, animals, and so. And it costed, it was for 12 million euro, this project. And the ministry supported us, wanted to give us 8 million, others. But I had a problem with the forest ministry. The forest minister refused to give the money from the government to us, because he said he was jealous from the state forest. He said then Luebeck, the city, is so attractive that the people all go to Luebeck and not come to the state forest. So then I retired, and the project's still hanging. We have a new mayor, and he phoned me the other day and said, I was a young man when you was in Luebeck, and I listened carefully, and I try, when I will be voted in the next years, I try to make this project. That is a typical urban forest project, concentrated with many, with even forest schools, not forest kindergartens, as forest schools additionally. I hope then I can learn from you how to manage this very concentrated. But my first idea was to keep it quiet and to listen to nature and to be in midst of a very dense forest. For example, our forest was, when I came, not dense. It was an open forest, like treated like everywhere in Germany. We gave a figure 290 cubic meter per hectare. Now we have 500 cubic meter per hectare. We nearly doubled it. It is close to nature. Nature would have 700 cubic meter hectares. So in this density, people feel different now. In a hot day in Luebeck with 30 degrees in summer, you have only 22 degrees or 20 in the forest. So they feel nature and wilderness is something we have lost in our culture. And that is the attraction I want to continue mainly. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. First of all, thank you, both of you, for interesting presentations and for your job, because in general, forest belongs to everyone in the world, I think, and it's a great job you have done. My question is about a more kind of wood production. You mentioned about like the small areas around the city. Does these areas fulfill the requirements of the people in terms of wood, or you are just loading it with the recreational functions more than for example in terms of wood?
Yeah, well, if I can say, for our forest, the timber production is not primary goal. It's only the third goal, or even. So we do have timber production, but more not as to earn money, but as part of forest management, for adapted forest management for social forest functions. So we don't have proper or real timber production. If I can answer also to Mariam from before about the public participation, how we gain the public. So in our case, it was different because people were not going to these forests. They were inaccessible. So first we needed some time to open this forest, and that people were starting to come. Through the media, we were inviting them. Come to the forest, it's a very nice place. You will gain from it. And then slowly, they started to come. Now they are coming really a lot. And now they are saying, well, this is our forest. And when we are doing something in some kind of management works in the forest, like for timber production or cutting of the woods, or they are saying, well, what are you doing in our forest? So we have now our role of public relations changed. Now we have to inform them what we are doing on time. Otherwise, we got questions and they are angry. And they are also always, their demands rise up. So if there is broken some kind of equipment like these benches, or they say, why is this so? This is not supposed to be. When will you repair it? And then we are, because it's not, it's municipality who has to pay it, not us. And I would just like to add that social media, for a long time, we were resisting to use social media. I mean, we, the foresters, are happy in our forests. We don't want to this. These articles in the papers and media were enough for us. But now it started, so we have we have Instagram, and we are posting on it, and we learned that it can be a nice creative way how to communicate our forest visitors. Just today, yesterday in the evening, I posted a new post about urban forest that we are preparing 2 new thematic paths, and I prepare by myself this time a short video, and I mean, the responses are really great. So it's working, but we focus just on one for this time. We would need actually a professional to do this.
Yeah, and one more additional question.
Can I answer to it?
Yeah.
The targets and the demands of the society are changing rather rapidly to forest. When I started my forest work more than 50 years ago, it was more after the World War in Germany turned to productivity in forest wood in forestry. And even with surplus, if possible, finally, as a management. But it's changed rapidly more for recreation and fresh air and so. And nowadays, for survival, even Germany, survival of the forest is now more. It's the highest priority in climate change for all. That is one thing we must consider. And I personally think the next 20 years, forestry in Germany, at least, has the main priority in survival. And survival means very easily closer to nature, much more even closer to nature. And that means in public forest, could mean in public forest, really more moratorium and forest cutting. That means stop or reduce heavily the forest cutting so that the forest can become bigger, denser, cooler, more moisture. That is the only thing we can do for survival at the moment. But beside this, which in the moment is for public forest much discussed, and some of the public forests, especially city forests, they have stopped their forest timber cut because of the survival idea is the highest priority. But before this, I must say the challenge was not to have only social forests so that you can do everything in the forest, or only have commercial forest and cut out as much, but to have these threefold targets which come from sustainability in Rio, no? Ecological, social, and economic. And this was really the challenge. And out of this, as I was a manager, I come from management, I said, in the long run, such concepts and the attitude to love their forest is only to be stabilized if you have not a deficit in the commercial sense, if the forest in the long run can pay itself. Otherwise, you have a political change and they say, oh, it's too cost intensive, we sell it or we cut it out or so. If people say it bears itself, economically, it's an outcome from this forest, but at the same time, a high ecological value and a high social possibilities. That was this balance. That was my target. And out of this, I said always, I will cut as much timber as I need for a minimum surplus, never a deficit. We had never a deficit in this forest. And this is still now like this in Luebeck. We reduced the cutting to half of the possible cut and even more a little bit, because that was still enough to have a positive surplus in financial reasons. I think when I see the different problems of public administrations with money, and so they depend so much on political changes, if you have your outcome and you bear yourself financially seen with forest management, and at the same time can fulfill the ecological and social demands, then you're on the safe side. I tried always to balance it in that way. So to give you a figure, we have these 5,000 hectares, and we cut only half of the timber volume, which was possible. It was about 15,000 cubic meter every year. But when you have more living forest. I said you, we had at the beginning only 290 cubic meter, and now we have about 500. Then you have soon an increment which is double of before. So you can cut even more than before when you cut 100%. In about 10 years, we have such a growing stock that we can cut only half of the growing stock, no? Because it is dense enough. But we have more than 30 years ago if you cut all, because a big forest, a dense forest, produces double of that was before. So this ecological secret, come close to nature, make it dense, means you have a machine in future, a timber machine, which produces a double of that what you had before. Yeah. So it's a secret. Nature makes economic.
Yeah. So you partly covered my second question, but I still want to make it clear. Like, if you have like small urban areas where you make like kind of restriction about the cutting of the trees, then you have to transport the wood from the other places because the demand is still rising up, at least in our reality, for example. And how then it works, like to have an oasis around the cities and then like cut the trees double more in the outside of in the mountains somewhere. So how it can, how to say, let's say.
May I continue then you, because just we did not make a difference. We have had only defined areas, so-called reference areas, where we don't do anything to observe how nature works. It is 10% of the area, 500 hectare, nothing from out of 5,000. But the rest is all harvested, even just bordering the city, because that was a challenge, to harvest in a way that people accept it with a minimum of destruction and a minimum of demolition. And as in your city, people trust us. It was explained, timber is a good material, as a renewable material which grows by itself, and it keeps CO2 from the air. So it's a wanted material, and we cannot stop with producing it out of several reasons, but with a minimum of damage. And there is naturally damage. Is that damage because the transport system is related to the ground? We compact the ground, and falling trees cut other trees. That is so. But we try to really minimize it, and we invite people who in winter are a little bit irritated about damages, no? With these big trees when they fall. And we invite them always in spring times, when it's everything green, in May, June, to have excursions with us and to find out the places where we have cut trees. And mostly they don't find it again because it's hardly to be seen. When vegetation comes back and you work carefully, then you hardly see where we have harvested. And one secret is we do everything with our own workers. We don't have contractors because they don't feel responsible for the future. Our own workers feel responsible for the future. The foresters feels responsible, and if they have made a mistake, something not good with their tractors or so, then we go to the tractor driver with him to the forest and say, look here, it was not good, and he will never do it again. So you need the feeling for all members of your forest enterprise for responsibility and ownership. It's their forest and they are responsible. Never give it away to somebody else who is, after he has cut, nobody there, never again in your forest. Yeah, this ecosystem must be accompanied by a social system which feels responsible for exactly your own forest.
Yes, if I may add, our situation is a little bit different, but in somehow also the same. So we have on this 100 hectares of forests where the social forest function, where we developed these contents that I was presenting. The timber production is almost zero, just sanitary felling and regular what is needed. But in other forests owned by the city, the timber production is normal actually, and has more is more significant. But the municipality owns the forests, and they say, well, what we earn with the forests, the profit, we will invest back to the forest. So it's a zero or a small surplus, but it's not the municipality. For many years now, they say we don't have forests to earn money. What we earn from this more commercial forests, we will invest back to the forest. That's what we're trying to. That was our proposal, and slowly they were taking it. And nowadays it's like that. Yeah, the forests are not to earn the money for the municipality, are not important source of income. But this social function, it is. Which, so I'm sorry. Yeah, we were discussing during this week in our Eco Georgia project about ecosystem services, and ecosystem services were developed. The concept was developed to somehow to put monetary on some ecosystem services like recreation or aesthetics, or to put money. What is the worth of these forest ecosystem services? And many times these ecosystem services, if you try to evaluate them, they are much more important than just timber. 10 times more, or even.
Oh, sorry, you wanted to explain.
Can I add something? I think, excuse me. I think we are in a change even of the values of the forest, which are seen from the public and which are necessarily to be seen. That is in the contents of the survival of mankind and forest. It is a CO2 concentration in the air, and forest is one of the possibility to make us have a sink of CO2. About 15% of the existing CO2 in the air is possible to be bound by photosynthesis, CO2 binding, and being stored as carbon in the trees and in the soil. And it is obvious that in many countries of the world, it will be paid. It is already privately paid with some big firms. When you keep your forest and do not cut it, and have a denser forest so that you can sink more CO2 per hectare. And they pay in different countries already for that between 25 and 100 euro per ton CO2. It is about the same per cubic meter. And if you have an increment of, in Germany, we have such an increment of 8 to 10 cubic meter per hectare and year. Then you get, if you have 100, like in Sweden and in Switzerland, I think 100 per ton CO2, then you get 1,000 euro per hectare and year, only when you do not harvest. That is 10 times more nearly as if you harvest timber. And this will be the future of forest service everywhere, to rescue the world via CO2. You earn more money than you cut trees.
Okay, thank you, Zura, and yeah, thank you, dear Lutz and dear Robert. Yeah, particular thanks to you, Lutz, yeah, because you are working with us and you are advising our ministry, GIZ, and yeah, thanks for your effort and your input in this process. Yeah, some provocative questions I would like to to ask you. Yeah, because I'm very well aware about National Forest Inventory, which is carried out very newly, and we are preparing now for final report. Yeah, I would like to ask question not particular. Like first question will be like general. Yeah. Provocate question would be if degraded forest could fulfill that requirement, what was described by your slides. In particular, I would like to refer to these main indicators for SFM and what was mentioned. And for example, I will list these indicators, like let's say habitat tree, let's say deadwood, let's say reference area, and so on. Just also here, I would like to inform you that Georgian forest, like what was conclusion of this national forest inventory, like 40% of forests is degraded because of several reasons. But same time, when I remember the figures what we have in terms of habitat tree, we have around 25% of habitat tree. We have 30 cubic meter per hectare dead tree, including lying and standing dead tree. And just to know this figure, and when I compare this slide, what was defined, actually both of you, because dear Robert, you also confirmed that this is common understanding about indicators and target values and so on. I'm wondering about, like, this is like main or basic variables of forest management increment. Right. In these terms, I would like to highlight that Georgian forest has some good figures in terms of biodiversity measures, but same time we know that we have a lot of cuts, which is possibly more than natural increment. Just wanted to hear your comment and your advices in this regard, that just to consider this kind of increment aspect for forest management. And that's why I'm referring this one, that in other hand, a forest could fulfill this main requirement, which is required by for biodiversity targets and so on. But same time, we know what kind of pressure we have. But this is like over cuts we haven't. I could not find this aspect from your presentation, this increment, how important is increment for forest management. This was like one question to you. Second one, dear Robert, you as a guiding principles, you presented us that this urban forestry has one priority, is to have high growing rate. And now you mentioned that this timber production is not priority. This is like secondary use. And first, I'm wondering how you are ensuring this high growing rate. What kind of forestry operations you are doing in terms to reach this high growing rates. And same time, if you are referring thinning or cutting, which not necessarily it's recent. Question would be if it's not contradicts with close to nature forest management, because from previous presentation we hear that maximum 3-4 times for entire live should be should cut. This would be second question. Another question I have regarding governance, because you mentioned that you improved the governance, right? Here, because also we have here from let's say urban forestry, which is managed by Tbilisi City Hall. Question might be interesting for them. What kind of expertise you have within your team? What kind of professionals they are working? I can imagine not only foresters are dealing with several activities, right? Next question would be regarding differences between urban forest management in terms of regulations and ordinary forest, right? In particular, I'm wondering about what kind of differences you have in terms of forestry operations, if they are clear, I don't know, forbidden any kind of cuts and so on. So Yeah, and also from your present, yeah, this is last question. From your presentation there, Robert, I had some feelings that you are, let's say, you like more state forests than private forests, right? Why you have such kind of assumption? Yeah, just to, yeah, we are in the stage of I don't know, to have municipal forests or private forests, and yeah, would be good to hear your opinion in this regard. Thank you, and yeah, sorry for my questions.
Lutz, can I go from back? Yeah, I will go from back. Yeah. Okay, then okay, I will answer from the back. Okay. Well, as I mentioned, we have these different interests in urban forests, which are in a way more significant than in other forests. So these social forest functions or ecosystem services in urban forests, they are more important. To combine, like I mentioned, the conflict between the economic interests, which usually private forest owners has, and also state forest company, and on the other hand, this public forest service or social forest functions, they are somehow in conflict. So that's why how to solve this, the best way is that municipality owns the forest, and then they as an owner can decide what we will have, or the forest for timber production or the forest for used by the citizens. That's why for us the best solution is that the municipality owns the forest, or the second best chance is if the state owns the forest, because it can also somehow more easily adopt these social forest functions than a private forest owner. He has just one strict goal, to make money out of the forest. That's why I said that we prefer municipality ownership, and if not, state ownership. That is one question, one answer. About the timber production, it's basically our close to nature forest management, which is not so radical or developed as the Luebeck concept. It provides all different functions of the forest, basically. So what we do in urban forest is just to little bit adopt this basic principle of close to nature that I was mentioning. What does it mean? So we are leaving big trees, really big trees, or nice, aesthetically nice trees that would be cut down in normal forest just for aesthetic function, or the production period of this forest is prolonged. So it's not, now I'm speaking just from, it's not 120, but it is 160 years. So we want to have older forests, bigger trees, and also rejuvenation period is also longer than in average forests. So that are some kind of adaptations. Adaptations are also, when do we do silviculture or measures? So in a proper time, not during the high season, for example. Or what kind of equipment do we use? As I mentioned, that sometimes we use also horses. It's expensive, but as there are this forest is important, and we need to preserve the forest soils, we engage the contractors with the horses. But in general, the difference between close to nature forest management concept in in average forest, it can be privately owned too. And in urban forest, in general, there are no big differences. It is quite the same. The principles are quite the same. So yeah, let's maybe if you can refer to.
You asked, the first question was about increment and how to improve. And so out of the knowledge here in Georgia, the increment is strictly related to the density of the forest. And second, to its functioning. That means naturalness, finally. How close is it to a good natural function? And in Georgia, one thing is, as you know better than me, the density, or call it this, the growing timber stock, is about half of the natural possibility. No? Professor Nakudrishvili found it out, gave us some data, and Dragan, he transferred it to the planning. That means similar as in Germany, similar. We have only in Germany half of the potential density, even in Germany. That means one secret is to have more density. And you have not to do unless to let it grow. And but how to stop cutting which is not within the planning, illegal cutting? I don't know. It's more a social ecological question out of my meaning than a criminal thing. It's social ecological. If people have enough income and possibility for work and so, and younger people come more and more to the cities, I think the less is the pressure on the forest. I'm optimistic in the long run that people demand not so much on firewood. What's the concept? I liked the concept, Georgian forest concept. It said always, first for the people here. And when you cut trees, then try to keep the wood in your country for value adding, processing, and for the need of the people. So I think it's a political task which cannot fulfilled only by the forest sector, by the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Social Affairs, Ministry of Energy, Ministry. So they must really work together with the Ministry of Agriculture, because it's a socio-economic question. And then you get your forests denser, and then maybe people have in the country not so many cows and sheep, and the grazing is not affecting so much. That's the two things, no? For fuel wood and grazing. And that's a political thing. And we foresters can only explain to the politicians the reasons behind. No? They should be repeatedly must say, we know the reasons, and it is not because people are bad. It is because the circumstances for the living is bad. Political thing. And when if you have double density, then you have double increment. Then you can harvest one day 3, 4, or 5 cubic meters per hectare. At the moment, maybe not more than 1 or 2. No, the same in Germany. When I started, we had 6.5 cubic meter increment. When we now we can harvest 12 cubic meter increment because we have a denser forest. It's so easy.
I think this question we are asked and answered, but firstly, I want to it's answered more specific. Okay, it's want to be answered more specifically. So one fact before I ask question, I know that your this urban forestry is a product where municipality is trying to obtain that product and paying for this for you. But I have a question. If municipality stops paying you money and you will be yourself brand, because you said we have the brand. Also, you have a situation where you also had this education systems, and people already know why forest is a good thing to pay for the money. Are they ready to pay directly money for the forests to go in the forest, for example, or pay for the educational systems about the forest?
That's a very interesting question that we are dealing with at the moment. I can say. Because if I'm speaking, maybe if I can answer first this and then, okay. Yeah, green taxes, yes. In our case, it is so, like I had mentioned, that municipality is paying for the forest services from their income from the timber production. So this is direct money, as you say. So they have in their budget every year some amount of money that will be invested in the forest and some amount of money that is expected to be gained from the forest. About education, it's so that the demands from schools and different kind of groups are higher that we can cover with our staff. We would need more people, but someone has to pay this extra other new workers or colleagues, and we are expecting from the municipality that they will pay for it. At the moment, it is not so. So at the moment, we cannot cover all the demands for education that is coming, because it's not coming only from our city, but also from other parts of the countries, and we simply cannot fulfill all the needs. And we would have to find some kind of solution for that. Otherwise, the money that we are getting for our service as a forest service from the municipality is relatively low and not very significant for the income of our forest service. Yeah, I don't know what I don't know if I answered the question.
I think it was answered, but I have one option also. For example, you buy that forest territory and you make no one to go, restrict everyone to go here, there and use the forest product and make make them pay to go there and use it. Is there an option?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is option. But it would be more in privately owned forests. So private forest owner would have some interest to develop some kind of services and then to market these services. So if you want to come to our canopy walk, which we made in our forest, privately owned, you have to pay for it. We have this kind of examples in Slovenia too. So you have to pay to go for the canopy walk in the privately owned forests. But I think in this urban forests, municipality-owned forests, the main target is not to, like I said, to earn money, to commercialize it. It is forest owned by the people, and for the people. I can also give you an example. Now we are with one mountain biker association. Together we are developing a new mountain bike park in the forest. And the municipality agreed, yes, you can use this forest for this. So we authorize that you can, together with the Forest Service and under the supervision of the Forest Service, develop these new bicycle tracks. But one of the condition that municipality said yes was that they should not commercialize this forest. So no commercial in the forest, like this company with the it doesn't go together. They cannot commercialize public forest. they can use it, but not commercialize for their activities because it's a public forest. And just this last Saturday, they had this annual meeting of mountain bikers, and I saw on Instagram that they had these posts for their sponsors. And now I have to go to them and talk to them that this is not like we were, that like it should be. But they, of course, they are a small association. They need some income, and they are supporting them with the equipment and something. And now you can see on their pictures in the forest this sponsors, and we are not happy with it. It's not like it should be.
You can do it in private forest.
You can do it in private forest. Well, that's I think it's a quite important issue. To what point you can market the forest? To what commercial point you can market the forest? And to what point this is common good? You cannot market everything. Forest is a forest. Yeah.
Okay,
But it's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are some minutes over our meeting time, so we value everybody's time here. And thanks to our lecturers for these wonderful lectures, and what's sometimes more important, discussions after the lectures, right? About the urban forestry. Thanks to GIZ for making it possible to happen. And thanks for everybody coming, for the people joining us through the Zoom. So thanks everyone. And I will share the video of this recording of this particular event, and then you can share it freely if you would like to. Thank you very much for everyone, and have a good evening.